Snowflakes drifted gently through the air as Christmas lights sparkled across the city. The streets were filled with laughter, music, and families carrying colorful shopping bags. Everywhere Sarah looked, people seemed happy. But Sarah felt completely alone. At 29 years old, Sarah had grown used to loneliness. She had been deaf since birth and communicated primarily through sign language. Although she could read lips well, many people found it difficult to communicate with her. She worked as a talented graphic designer and had built a quiet but meaningful life. Yet every Christmas reminded her of something she didn't have, a family of her own. This year felt different, though. A month earlier, she had met a man named Michael through an online dating app. He seemed kind, patient, and genuinely interested in getting to know her. They had exchanged hundreds of messages. Michael even learned a few basic signs to communicate better with her. For the first time in years, Sarah allowed herself to hope. When Michael invited her to dinner on Christmas Eve, she spent days preparing. She carefully chose a beautiful red dress. She styled her hair. She even bought a small Christmas gift for him, a leather keychain engraved with the words, "Thank you for understanding me." As she stood outside the elegant restaurant, her heart raced with excitement. Maybe this could be the beginning of something wonderful. Maybe this Christmas would finally be different. Inside, warm lights glowed above beautifully decorated tables. A giant Christmas tree stood near the entrance. Sarah spotted Michael sitting near a window. She smiled and waved. Michael stood up, but instead of looking happy, he looked nervous. Very nervous. Sarah sat down and greeted him using sign language. Michael awkwardly looked around. Then he pulled out his phone and typed something. Sarah's smile slowly faded as she read the screen. "I don't think this is going to work." Confused, she looked up. Michael sighed. He typed another message. "You're nice, but I realized I can't handle dating someone who's deaf." Sarah felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath her. She stared at the words. Michael continued typing. "Communication is too difficult. I need someone normal." Normal. That word struck her harder than anything else. For a moment she couldn't breathe. Months of hope shattered in seconds. Michael stood up. "I'm sorry," he mouthed. Then he walked away. Just like that, leaving Sarah alone at the table. The Christmas gift remained unopened. Around her, people laughed and celebrated while tears filled her eyes. She wanted to leave immediately. But her legs refused to move. So she sat there, staring at the Christmas tree while silently crying. Nobody noticed, or so she thought. Across the restaurant, two little girls had been watching. They looked about 7 and 9 years old. The younger girl tugged on her sister's sleeve and pointed toward Sarah. The older sister nodded. A moment later, they approached her table. Sarah quickly wiped away her tears. The older girl hesitated before raising her hands. Then she signed carefully. "Are you okay?" Sarah froze. The little girl knew sign language. The younger sister smiled and signed too. "Can we join you?" Sarah stared in disbelief. Then she nodded. The girls pulled up chairs and sat beside her. Their names were Emma and Lily. They communicated surprisingly well in sign language. Sarah asked how they learned. The girls exchanged glances. Then Emma pointed toward a nearby table. A man sat there alone, watching them. He smiled warmly. Emma signed. "That's our dad." Sarah waved politely. The man waved back. Then Lily explained. 3 years earlier, their mother had lost her hearing after a serious illness. The entire family had learned sign language to communicate with her. Sadly, their mother had passed away the previous Christmas. Since then, sign language had remained an important part of their lives. Sarah's heart softened. The girls continued chatting happily. For the first time that evening, she found herself smiling. They asked about her job, her hobbies, her favorite Christmas movies. Within minutes, the sadness began to fade. Then Emma looked toward her father again. A mischievous smile appeared on her face. She signed. "Dad looks lonely too." Sarah laughed. Lily nodded dramatically. "Very lonely." The girls stood up and ran back to their father. Sarah assumed that was the end of it. Then something unexpected happened. The father approached her table. He looked slightly embarrassed. Using basic sign language, he introduced himself. His name was Daniel. Sarah smiled and introduced herself. Daniel's signing wasn't perfect, but he tried. Whenever he got stuck, he wrote notes on a small pad. It was obvious he cared more about communicating than appearing perfect. That alone impressed Sarah. Soon the four of them were sharing desserts and laughing together. The restaurant staff even brought extra hot chocolate for everyone. For the first time all evening, Sarah felt included, seen, valued. As the night continued, Daniel learned what had happened. Emma had already told him about Michael leaving. Daniel's expression darkened. He wrote something on his notepad. Anyone who can't see your worth because you're deaf doesn't deserve your time. Sarah looked down, overwhelmed. Nobody had ever defended her like that. Especially not a stranger. The girls immediately agreed. Emma signed dramatically. He's stupid. Daniel quickly corrected her. The entire table burst into laughter. Hours passed. The restaurant gradually emptied. Outside, snow continued falling. When it was finally time to leave, Sarah felt unexpectedly sad. She didn't want the evening to end. Neither did the girls. Lily hugged her tightly. Emma handed her a folded piece of paper. Inside was a phone number. Their father's number. Emma signed confidently. Call him. Daniel nearly choked from embarrassment. Sarah laughed harder than she had in months. Before leaving, Daniel asked if she'd like to join them for Christmas breakfast the next morning. Sarah hesitated. She didn't want to intrude. But the girls practically begged. So she agreed. The next morning, Sarah arrived carrying homemade cinnamon rolls. The girls greeted her like family. The house was filled with Christmas decorations, photographs, and warmth. For the first time in years, Christmas didn't feel lonely. After breakfast they exchanged gifts. To Sarah's surprise, the girls had prepared one for her. Inside the box was a silver bracelet. Attached was a small note. For our new friend. Sarah wiped away tears. Nobody had bought her a Christmas gift in years. Daniel smiled softly. You deserve one, he mouthed. Over the following weeks, Sarah became a regular part of their lives. She helped the girls with school projects. They taught her family recipes. Daniel invited her to community events. The connection grew naturally. There was no pressure, no expectations, just friendship. And slowly, something more. Daniel admired Sarah's kindness, intelligence, and resilience. Sarah admired his patience, compassion, and devotion to his daughters. Most importantly, Daniel never treated her deafness as a problem. It was simply part of who she was. Nothing more, nothing less. Months later, spring arrived. One Saturday afternoon, Sarah accompanied the family to a local park. The girls ran ahead, chasing butterflies. Daniel and Sarah sat together on a bench. For several minutes neither spoke. Then Daniel pulled out a small notebook. Sarah smiled. He still carried it everywhere. He wrote, "Can I tell you something?" She nodded. Daniel took a deep breath. Then he wrote, "The girls weren't the only ones who wanted to sit at your table that night." Sarah felt her heart skip. Daniel continued, "I noticed you the moment you walked into the restaurant." A nervous smile appeared on his face. "I wanted to talk to you, but I was afraid." Sarah laughed softly. Daniel pointed toward himself. Single father. Terrible at dating. She smiled. Then he wrote one final sentence. "But meeting you was the best Christmas gift we've ever received." Tears filled Sarah's eyes. Happy tears. The kind she never thought she'd cry again. At that exact moment, Emma and Lily came running back. They immediately noticed the emotional expressions. Emma crossed her arms suspiciously. "What's happening?" She signed. Daniel groaned. Sarah laughed. Then she signed. "Your dad just said something very sweet." The girls cheered. Daniel buried his face in his hands. Several months later, Daniel officially asked Sarah to be part of their family. This time, there were no grand speeches. No fancy restaurant. No expensive gifts. Just four people sitting together at the same table where everything had begun. The girls had one question. The exact same question they asked on Christmas Eve. They signed. "Can we join you?" Sarah smiled through tears. Then she signed back. "Forever." The girls screamed with excitement. Daniel laughed. And for the first time in her life, Sarah realized something important. The Christmas date that had seemed like her worst heartbreak had actually led her to the people who would become her family. Sometimes rejection closes one door. But kindness opens another. And sometimes, the greatest Christmas miracle begins with two little girls asking a lonely stranger, "Can we join you?"